NASA just announced a shocking new asteroid discovery, only to realize they had been tricked by Elon Musk. Scientists were thrilled when they spotted a strange object orbiting our solar system, believing it was a brand new space rock. They quickly added it to their official records, excited to study this unusual find. But could this strange object really be something never seen before in space? Did Elon face any consequences for this? Now, this might sound like just another hilarious Musk prank, but the reality is a little more complicated. With companies like SpaceX launching hundreds of rockets every year, the amount of space junk orbiting Earth is exploding. Many of these discarded boosters and test payloads get lost, only to be rediscovered years later when astronomers mistakenly think they've found something new. It's happening so often that even NASA's old space observatories have been mistaken for asteroids. This constant mix-up creates a serious problem. Scientists rely on accurate space tracking to predict potential asteroid threats. If something were on a collision course with Earth, we'd need to know about it as soon as possible. But if our asteroid catalog is cluttered with lost rocket parts, it gets harder to tell what's actually a danger and what's just an old piece of space junk. Before we dive deeper, it's clear that this mix-up isn't just a harmless mistake. If we can't tell space junk from real threats, the consequences could be far more dangerous than anyone realizes. The situation is worse than most people realize. More private companies are launching their own space missions, but there are no clear rules on how to track all the objects flying through space. Imagine if airplanes on Earth took off without telling anyone where they were going. That's exactly what's happening with rockets heading into space. Right now, there is no global rule requiring companies to report where their spacecraft are headed, leaving scientists struggling to keep track of everything. This is exactly what happened with a company called Asteroid, a private business hoping to dig valuable metals from asteroids. They sent a mission into space, but refused to reveal which asteroid they were going after. Their reason? They feared a competitor might rush in and take control of the asteroid before they could. But by keeping it quiet, they made things even harder for astronomers, whose job is to track objects in space. Without accurate data, mistakes happen, and those mistakes could lead to serious problems in the future. The number of objects floating in space is growing fast, much faster than experts expected. Last year alone, SpaceX launched more than 130 rockets, more than most countries combined. Some of those rockets are still out there, drifting without control, and many are being mistaken for asteroids. Scientists are pushing for better tracking systems, saying that every object sent into space should be recorded and monitored. The American Astronomical Society has officially asked for stronger rules to keep track of everything being sent into space. But so far, there has been little progress. Scientists have warned that if nothing changes, space will become even more chaotic, making it harder to track asteroids, satellites, and abandoned rockets. Some companies, like Asteroid, finally gave in to public pressure and shared the location of their asteroid mission, but they only did so after facing heavy criticism. Many other companies still refuse to reveal details about their launches, and without strict rules, they are free to send objects into space without thinking about the consequences. Every year, more and more spacecraft are launched, and without a proper system in place, it is getting harder to tell where everything is going and what risks might be involved. This problem goes beyond just keeping track of objects. It could lead to serious dangers in the future. Right now, one of the strangest things floating through space is a red Tesla sports car sent into orbit by Elon Musk's company, SpaceX. The car is drifting around the sun, a symbol of both human progress and the growing mess in space. But the more objects that are launched without regulation, the more confusion there will be. Scientists are already struggling to tell the difference between real asteroids and pieces of broken rockets. This confusion is a growing concern because if astronomers mistake a dangerous asteroid for just another piece of space junk, the consequences could be devastating. Imagine a real asteroid heading toward Earth, but because there are so many abandoned spacecraft out there, it gets mistaken for an old rocket booster. By the time anyone realizes the truth, it could be too late. The more objects that are left drifting in space, the higher the chances of confusion. Scientists have been warning about this for years, but without proper rules, things are only getting worse. The lack of tracking means that not only are we losing control of space debris, but we are also increasing the chances of missing something truly dangerous. It is not just about keeping things organized, it is about making sure we can tell the difference between harmless space junk and real threats. If things continue like this, the risks will only grow. What if a space agency detects an unknown object heading toward Earth and assumes it is just another lost satellite? What if a private company accidentally sends a rocket into the same path as an important satellite and causes a major collision? These are not just small concerns, they are real dangers that could have serious consequences. Without proper tracking, every new object sent into space adds to the growing chaos. The longer we wait to fix this, the worse the problem will get. Right now, there are thousands of pieces of space debris floating around, and no one is keeping track of them all. Every time a new rocket launches without proper records, space becomes even harder to manage. Just when space was already crowded with floating junk, Elon Musk sent something into the sky that no one expected. Back in February 2018, Elon Musk pulled off one of the wildest publicity stunts the world had ever seen. SpaceX, his company, sent a rocket into space, but instead of carrying scientific equipment or satellites, it was loaded with something straight out of a sci-fi movie, a cherry-red Tesla Roadster, a car, in space. If that wasn't enough, the driver's seat was occupied by a mannequin dressed in a SpaceX spacesuit, dubbed Starman. This whole spectacle wasn't just about showing off a new rocket, it was about making history in the flashiest way possible. The Falcon Heavy, the most powerful rocket in operation at the time, blasted off from Florida and carried the Roadster into an orbit that would take it far beyond Earth. And because Musk doesn't do things halfway, he made sure the car's sound system was set to play David Bowie's Space Oddity on an endless loop. As if that wasn't enough, the dashboard had a sign reading, "Don't Panic," a nod to Douglas Adams's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Every detail of this launch was designed for maximum impact, blending science fiction with real-life space travel. This wasn't just a simple space test. It was a performance, an art piece, and a brand statement all rolled into one. The car, still attached to the rocket's second stage, began a path around the Sun, venturing past Mars' orbit. It wasn't long before astronomers started tracking it like they would a celestial body, giving it an official designation in space catalogs. Some people were amazed, others were confused, and some started questioning whether turning space into a billionaire's playground was really the best use of rocket science. Inside the Roadster, SpaceX included a few quirky objects meant to add a touch of humor and culture. There was a copy of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in the glove compartment, a towel, another reference to the book, and a miniature version of the Roadster with a tiny Starman figurine sitting inside. Beneath the car, a plaque with the names of SpaceX employees was attached, while a message on the car's circuit board read, "Made on Earth by humans." Musk knew exactly what he was doing, giving the world something they'd never forget. The launch was live-streamed, and for over 4 hours, millions of people watched as the car drifted against the backdrop of Earth, looking like a scene straight out of a blockbuster movie. Eventually, the live stream ended, but the car kept going, moving through space as a permanent symbol of human ambition, or perhaps human excess. Scientists estimated that the Roadster could keep floating through space for millions of years, unless, of course, it eventually crashes into Earth or Venus, which, according to some studies, is a tiny but real possibility. Then, in January 2025, something strange happened. Astronomers spotted an unidentified object near Earth, initially thinking it was an asteroid. It was named 2018 CN41. But after further analysis, they realized it wasn't a rock at all. It was Musk's Tesla, making an unexpected return visit. This moment reignited discussions about tracking human-made objects in space and how difficult it is to tell the difference between space junk and real celestial bodies. If a car can be mistaken for an asteroid, what else might be out there, floating unnoticed? The launch of the Tesla Roadster sparked all kinds of debates. Some people saw it as a clever marketing stunt for Tesla, a way to make headlines and push Musk's brand to an even higher level. Others called it a modern piece of performance art, blending science, technology, and pop culture in a way no one had ever done before. But there were critics too. Some experts raised concerns about space debris and whether filling space with random objects was really a smart idea. There was also the issue of contamination. Sending Earth-made materials into deep space could pose risks to other planets if they carried bacteria or microbes. Regardless of what people thought, the event proved one thing: private space companies were changing the game. It was no longer just governments launching rockets. Billionaires were now sending their personal cars into orbit just to prove they could. It opened up conversations about the future of space travel, the role of private industry, and what humanity's real priorities should be. Was this a glimpse into a bold future, or just another example of wealth being used for extravagant displays of power? But what happens when a stunt meant to grab attention turns into a real problem that even top experts can't figure out? Back in early January 2025, astronomers got all excited over what they thought was a brand new near-Earth asteroid. They named it 2018 CN41 and quickly classified it as a potential threat since it was closer to Earth than the Moon. The excitement didn't last long, though. Within 17 hours, further analysis completely flipped the script. This so-called asteroid wasn't some space rock on a collision course. It was just Elon Musk's Tesla Roadster, the very same car SpaceX flung into space back in 2018. Now, how does something like this even happen? Well, it all boils down to the mess humans have made in space. When SpaceX launched that Tesla into the cosmos on a Falcon Heavy rocket, it was supposed to be a marketing stunt, an example of what their rockets could do. But years later, with the car orbiting the Sun and drifting between Earth and Mars, tracking it became tricky. Space is enormous, and not everything is beaming out a signal saying, "Hey, I'm a sports car floating out here." So when telescopes caught sight of something unexpected, astronomers mistook it for a new asteroid. But let's be real, this wasn't just some random mistake. The issue runs deeper. Scientists rely on data like brightness, speed, and movement to classify objects. In this case, the Roadster's reflective surfaces and erratic path through space made it look a lot like a real asteroid. Without clear indicators that screamed man-made object, it was easy to slap an official designation on it, and it wasn't just the pros who got fooled. An amateur astronomer first spotted the object and reported it to the Minor Planet Center at Harvard-Smithsonian. The center, tasked with cataloging space rocks and comets, confirmed the discovery. Only later did more detailed tracking reveal the embarrassing truth. This isn't the first time humans have mistaken their own junk for something natural, and it sure won't be the last. Just ask NASA. Back in the early 2000s, they repeatedly misidentified an old satellite called the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe as an asteroid. It's happening more often now, thanks to an increasing number of satellites, defunct rockets, and other junk clogging up space. And since there isn't a single comprehensive system to track everything we've tossed out there, mistakes like this are bound to keep happening. That brings us to a bigger issue: space debris. Every year, humans send up more satellites, more equipment, more everything. But what goes up doesn't always come back down, and over time, all that junk starts to pile up. It's a problem no one seems to have a real solution for. The Tesla Roadster may not be a direct threat, but it's a symbol of a growing problem. Earth's orbit is slowly turning into a cosmic junkyard. And while a drifting car might sound harmless, other debris could spell disaster for future space missions. We're talking collisions, broken satellites, and even threats to astronauts aboard the International Space Station. The takeaway? It's time to get serious about tracking and managing space junk. Relying on outdated systems that can't even tell the difference between a sports car and an asteroid isn't going to cut it. We need better databases, stronger international cooperation, and maybe even plans for cleaning up the mess we've already made. Otherwise, this won't be the last time astronomers excitedly announce the discovery of a new asteroid, only to realize they're just looking at another piece of human-made garbage floating around in the void. If sending a car into space was a big move, it was nothing compared to the control Musk was starting to have over businesses and governments on Earth. Elon Musk is one of those names that always stirs up strong opinions. Some think he's a genius changing the world, while others believe he's just a businessman with way too much power and zero accountability. His influence stretches across electric cars, artificial intelligence, social media, and even space travel. But with every flashy project, there's a trail of controversy, and Musk's decisions have led to some major concerns about how much control one person should really have. Take his latest government efficiency project, which sounds nice on paper but has raised serious alarm bells. This so-called Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, is all about slashing budgets, cutting jobs, and letting artificial intelligence take over decision-making. While he claims this will eliminate waste and make government operations smoother, critics argue that it puts way too much power into the hands of machines and threatens democracy itself. Instead of elected officials making the big calls, algorithms and automation could start running the show, leaving people with even less say in how their government works. And let's be honest, when has he ever prioritized oversight and transparency over speed and profit? His political involvement hasn't helped his case either. He played a major role during President Trump's administration, pushing for regulatory changes that suited his businesses. But as Tesla's profits started to slip and competition from companies like China's BYD grew stronger, he doubled down on self-driving taxis, AI research, and robotics. His alignment with certain political figures has alienated some of his long-time supporters, and with Tesla struggling to hold on to its dominance in the electric vehicle market, it's clear that his focus is shifting. Meanwhile, Google's Waymo is coming for the self-driving space, and Tesla's once unmatched technology is no longer the best in the game. Then there's his personal life, which never fails to make headlines. One particularly eyebrow-raising moment was when he brought his 4-year-old son to a White House press conference. His ex, Grimes, was reportedly furious, arguing that their child's privacy should come first. But he seems to live in a world where everything, even his own kids, can be used as part of his larger public image. It's a reminder that being a billionaire doesn't mean you're great at balancing personal and professional responsibilities. And of course, legal troubles are never far behind. A judge in Massachusetts recently gave him the green light to move forward with his federal job-cutting plans through DOGE. The plan offers employees financial incentives to leave voluntarily, but labor unions have slammed it as illegal and rushed. If this goes through, the ripple effects could be massive, stripping public services of necessary workers and leaving gaps that artificial intelligence simply can't fill. It's a classic move, big, bold, and potentially disastrous. His financial influence doesn't stop at the corporate world. He had a hand in the Federal Emergency Management Agency's, FEMA, decision to pull over $80 million from New York City's shelter program. He claimed the money was being misused to house migrants in luxury hotels, a statement that city officials strongly denied. The move caused outrage, with some calling it an outright betrayal. Now, New York is scrambling to recover the lost funding and even considering legal action against the federal government. Whether or not he had his facts straight, His ability to shape public policy to fit his narrative is a growing concern. And let's not forget the environmental impact of his projects. Despite pushing green energy with Tesla, many argue that his real priority is profit, not sustainability. Lawsuits and allegations of environmental damage have followed him for years, and some say his hunger for innovation often comes at the cost of proper environmental oversight. This raises the bigger question: does technological progress mean anything if it comes at the expense of the planet? Social media is another battleground where his power is on full display. Since taking over X, formerly Twitter, he's used it to push his political agenda and go after critics. The issue? He's both the platform owner and someone deeply involved in government discussions, blurring the line between private business and public policy. When one billionaire controls a major social media platform while actively influencing political decisions, it becomes harder to tell where the government ends and his personal interests begin. His involvement in the federal government has only deepened concerns. His Doge team, made up mostly of young, ambitious hires, now has access to sensitive data from agencies like the Treasury and the Office of Personnel Management. Some experts warn that this level of access is completely unprecedented and dangerous. If one person's private business ventures start dictating government policies, then what happens to the checks and balances that are supposed to keep democracy intact? Legal scholars are already calling this a violation of the separation of powers, and the implications are nothing short of alarming. His conflicts with other tech giants have also made waves. His decade-long feud with Sam Altman, co-founder of OpenAI, is a prime example. After failing to take control of OpenAI in 2018, he walked away and immediately started bad-mouthing the company. Since then, he's launched his own AI venture, xAI, which is clearly meant to compete with OpenAI. This isn't just about business rivalries. It's about one person's relentless need to dominate an industry, even if it means burning bridges and causing unnecessary drama. Is Elon Musk just having fun? Or is he making a statement about how easily space discoveries can be fooled? Tell us what you think, and remember to like and subscribe for more.